There comes a moment in life when you realize everyone you've ever tried to please was a cage. Every compliment you chased, every smile you earned, every nod of approval, it all formed invisible bars around your soul. And the worst part? You built it yourself. We're taught from the start that love is earned by obedience, that we are accepted when we comply, celebrated when we conform. So we make ourselves smaller, kinder, quieter, more palatable. We tell people what they want to hear. We smile even when we disagree. And in the process, we forget who we are. You say you want to be free, but freedom doesn't come wrapped in praise. It doesn't arrive gently with soft applause and warm hugs. Freedom shows up cold, sharp, and alone. It walks beside you when you stop pretending. It appears when you finally say the thing that no one wants to hear, when you become who you are, even if no one claps for it. But here's the truth. No one dares say out loud, you cannot be free and still be liked by everyone, because to be free means you will be misunderstood. You will outgrow people. You will disappoint those who only loved your mask. The more real you become, the more alone you may feel. And that's where most people turn back, right when they're about to meet themselves for the first time. We cling to connection like a lifeline. We think that being surrounded means being whole. But if your relationships are built on who you pretend to be, you're not connected. You're performing. There is a cost to authenticity. It's not cheap. It will cost you invitations, support, admiration. Sometimes it will cost you love. Not because you are unlovable, but because you stopped being what others needed you to be for them to feel safe. And this is the point where most people make a silent decision to stay bound or to walk alone. Those who dare to walk alone discover something terrifying at first. Silence. No one cheering, no one rescuing, no one validating, just silence. But if you stay in that silence long enough, you'll hear something else. Something soft, buried under years of pretending. A voice that doesn't ask for permission. A self that doesn't beg to be liked. That's you. That's freedom. And it begins the moment you stop asking others to walk beside you and start walking. Anyway, if you want to be free, you must be willing, truly willing to be alone. What if the thing you call loneliness is actually the birth of your real self? We're terrified of being alone. Not because of the silence, but because of what the silence reveals. In that space, when there's no one left to impress, no one to mirror our masks back to us, we come face to face with the stranger we've become. Most people never get to know themselves. Not truly. They know their roles, their titles, their reputation, but those are only reflections, what others see and shape. We avoid solitude because it strips all of that away. It demands we meet ourselves not as the world defines us, but as we actually are. And that is terrifying. We've been taught that being alone means something is wrong with us, that silence is a punishment, that if no one's calling, no one's texting, no one's looking for us, it means we're not enough. But this belief is not natural. It was planted, repeated, programmed. Why? Because a person who needs others to feel okay is easy to control. They're easy to sell to, easy to guilt, easy to manipulate. But a person who is at peace in their own presence, a person who no longer fears their own company, that person is powerful. That person is free. And the system doesn't like free people. So we numb the silence, with noise, with screens, with distractions. We scroll past our emotions. We drown out the ache. But the ache is the signal. It's your soul knocking, saying, come back, come see me. But here's what no one tells you. On the other side of that ache is peace. Not the shallow peace of approval, but the deep, unshakable peace of knowing who you are without needing the world to agree. You begin to make decisions based not on fear or pressure, but clarity. You begin to love not to fill a void, but to overflow. You start speaking not to be heard, but because your truth deserves a voice. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it can feel empty at first. But what you're really feeling is space. And that space is sacred. It's where the false self dies and the real self begins. You were never meant to belong everywhere. You were meant to belong to yourself first. So if you feel alone, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it. Let it undo you. Let it clear the noise. And when the fear finally fades, you'll realize something profound. You were never alone. You were just finally with yourself. There's a silence we spend our lives running from, and it's the only one that can truly set us free. We fill our days with noise, the soft hum of a TV playing in the background, the constant scroll of meaningless updates, the casual buzz of half-hearted conversations, because the alternative, the full force of silence, feels unbearable. But have you ever stopped to ask why? It's not the silence itself that frightens us. It's what the silence shows us. When all the distractions are gone, we're left with only ourselves, our rawest thoughts, our unhealed wounds, our deepest longings. And for most people, that is a confrontation they would rather avoid until their final breath. Because to truly meet yourself in solitude means looking into the eyes of the one person you cannot lie to, and for many, that's unbearable. But here's the secret. The moment you stop running from silence is the moment it begins to teach you. At first, the silence screams. It echoes all the shame, regret, confusion, and unmet needs you've buried beneath years of pretending. The parts of you that were told to be quiet finally rise, and it feels like drowning. But if you stay through the tremble of your own breath, through the chaos of thought that rises in the stillness, something changes. The noise begins to settle, the fog begins to clear, and then you begin to hear something softer, quieter, but unmistakably real. Your voice, not the one shaped by others. Not the voice trained to please or avoid conflict or seek praise, but the one you were born with, the one you lost under layers of masks, roles, and survival strategies. That voice begins to return, and it doesn't just whisper, it remembers. It remembers the child you were before the world taught you to betray yourself for belonging. It remembers the dreams you buried to make others comfortable. It remembers your anger, your hope, your joy, your questions. And slowly, you begin to remember too. You begin to see that you never really disappeared. You were just buried beneath the noise. Solitude doesn't give you a new self. It reveals the self that was always there, waiting patiently under the performance. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You start speaking differently, not louder, but more clearly. Your words no longer beg to be heard, they simply are. You don't perform confidence, you embody it. You're no longer pulled in every direction because you've finally chosen a direction of your own, and most importantly, you no longer betray yourself to avoid being alone, because you now understand the loneliness you feared was not the absence of others, it was the absence of you. Now that you've returned to yourself, you're no longer lonely when you're alone. You're aware, you're present, you're full. This is where true transformation begins. People talk about freedom like it's a destination, a place you arrive once you've ticked off every external goal. But freedom is an internal shift, and that shift happens when you no longer fear your own company. The world trains us to seek validation at every turn, every like, every compliment, every invitation. But once you've sat with yourself, really, sat in all your rawness and truth, you realize that the world's approval is no longer your currency. Peace is. You stop moving just to keep up. You stop speaking just to be liked. You start listening more, observing more, acting from intention rather than reaction. This is why silence is feared. It returns your power. And a person who reclaims their power is unpredictable. Not chaotic, but free. Not reckless, but sovereign. You begin to set boundaries, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You say no with ease. You say yes with clarity. You no longer make decisions from guilt or fear or obligation. Instead, you act from truth. A truth rooted in silence. A truth only solitude could reveal. And ironically, once you've made peace with being alone, you become someone others are, drawn to not for who you pretend to be, but for who you truly are. Your presence speaks before you do. It carries the weight of someone who has nothing to prove and nothing to chase. But the beauty is, you no longer need to be chosen. You have already chosen yourself. From this place, love changes. You no longer seek it to complete you. You bring it with you. Friendship changes. You no longer perform to be accepted. You connect because you are open, not because you are empty, and life itself changes. You start noticing things you used to miss. The way sunlight dances through leaves, the subtle shifts in your own breathing, the rhythm of your thoughts. The mundane becomes beautiful because your mind is no longer enslaved by the constant pull of needing more. Silence did that, solitude did that, and yes, it cost you. It cost you comfort. It cost you the illusion of belonging. It cost you certain people. But what it gave you in return is immeasurable. It gave you yourself. And once you have that, once you are rooted in your own being, there's nothing the world can offer that compares. You'll still experience pain, you'll still lose, you'll still grieve, but you will never again abandon yourself to avoid those things. And that is the quiet triumph of the soul. So the next time the silence creeps in, don't reach for the nearest distraction. Let it come. Invite it in like an old friend. Sit in its company like you would with someone you trust. Because now you know it's not there to hurt you. It's there to return you. Let me know when you're ready to move forward with image prompts, background music guidance, or visuals to pair with this section. I can also help with narration tone and pacing for delivery. There is a moment, if you're lucky, when the storm calms. Not because the world outside is quieter, but because you are. You stop resisting what is. You stop bargaining with reality. You stop needing anything from anyone to feel real. This is the stillness after the war within. And it only comes after you've walked through the fire of being alone, truly alone, not just physically but existentially. No validation, no applause, no mirrors reflecting who you're supposed to be. Just you. And the terrifying beauty of that silence, it forces you to ask, who am I, when nothing and no one defines me? That's not a question most people want to answer. It's not comfortable. It strips away every mask, every story you've ever told yourself, every excuse you've used to avoid standing in your own power. But if you're willing to stay in that question long enough, if you can resist the temptation to escape, to distract, to numb, something begins to emerge, not the ideal version of you, not the socially acceptable one, but the true one, the one who doesn't play games to be liked. The one who doesn't silence their truth to be safe, the one who can hold joy and sorrow in the same breath without being split apart. That's who you meet on the other side of solitude, and that's when freedom stops being a dream and starts becoming your default. But this journey isn't neat. It's not a straight line. It's a cycle, a spiral. You'll return to old wounds with deeper eyes. You'll outgrow old versions of yourself again and again. You'll taste freedom and then, sometimes, walk away from it out of habit. You'll fall back into needing approval, into fearing disconnection, into shrinking to fit old roles. And that's okay. Freedom isn't about never slipping. It's about knowing you can return. Return to yourself. Return to silence. Return to truth. Because now, unlike before, you know where home is, and once you've found it, you never forget the way. The cost of wholeness. let's not sugarcoat it. Choosing this path costs everything that was false. It costs friendships that were built on performance. It costs identities that gave you comfort, but robbed you of authenticity. It costs approval that came only when you betrayed your own voice. It costs illusions that once made you feel safe, but were killing you slowly. You lose a lot. But what you gain is you. Not the idea of you. Not the curated persona. The living, breathing, sacred human being that was waiting behind all of it. You become someone no one can take from you. And that's rare. Because in a world that profits from your self-abandonment, choosing yourself is revolutionary. You stop asking others to complete you. You stop depending on them to mirror your worth. And when someone leaves or misunderstands you or rejects you, it stings. But it no longer undoes you. Because your foundation isn't external anymore. It's internal. And nothing rooted in truth can be taken. Being alone isn't the absence of connection. It's the beginning of true connection. Most people think that to be free, you must be untouched by relationships, independent to the point of detachment. But that's a misunderstanding. Freedom isn't about being alone forever. It's about not needing others to fill the hole you won't face. When you've spent enough time in your own company, when you've sat with your shame, your beauty, your rage, your silence, something strange happens. You start connecting from wholeness, not from hunger. You stop attracting relationships that feed your insecurity. You stop playing roles just to be accepted. You no longer fear disconnection because you've already survived the deepest kind of solitude, and in doing so, you found yourself and the people you now welcome into your life. They don't meet your mask. They meet your essence. They don't fall in love with your performance. They recognize your truth. And if they can't, you let them go. Because now you understand, connection without authenticity is not connection. It's a performance, and you're done performing. The return, becoming a light in a world addicted to noise. So what happens when you come back? Back to the crowd, back to the world, back to the places you once felt small, unseen, incomplete? You walk in differently, not with arrogance, but with clarity, not with indifference, but with unshakable calm. Not needing to be heard, but knowing your voice carries weight even in silence. You become the person others feel but can't explain. The one who doesn't chase, but who moves with such integrity, others follow. Not because you want followers, but because you lead with presence, and people are starving for presence. Most have never tasted it. Not in themselves, not in their families, not in their relationships. So when you embody it, they don't know what to do with you. Some will try to diminish you. Others will idolize you. But the ones who are ready, they'll recognize themselves in you, because your solitude won't just be your freedom. It will be your gift to the world, the final choice. Will you stay true to what you found? Here's the thing about awakening. It's easy to forget. The world will pull you back, into comfort, into distraction, into roles that feel familiar but hollow. But you now have a choice you didn't have before. To stay. To stay true to what the silence showed you. To stay rooted in the self you met when no one was watching. To stay aligned, even when it costs you something, and it will cost you. But it will never cost you more than living a life that isn't yours. So, ask yourself, are you willing to be the one who walks away from applause to hear your own breath? Are you willing to be misunderstood, misread, and even left behind by those who only loved the mask? Are you willing to walk into the wilderness of yourself and build a life from truth, not tradition? If the answer is yes, then your freedom has already begun. Not because someone gave it to you, not because you fought for it with others, but because you sat in the quiet and remembered. You were never incomplete. You were just distracted. Now you're here. Now you're whole. And now, finally, you are free. Call to action. One line. Be the person who walks alone, so one day when you meet the right ones, you'll meet them as someone already whole.